the story of a polar bear, barnacle-like wounds, and the rescue team's efforts in the remote and frozen wilderness of the Arctic, where snow and ice stretch for miles. Polar bears roam the icy landscapes, reigning as one of nature's most iconic and resilient creatures. These majestic animals are perfectly adapted to survive the extreme cold, with thick fur and a layer of blubber to insulate them from the freezing temperatures. However, their harsh world is not without its dangers, and in recent years these dangers have intensified due to the impact of climate change. This is the story of one such polar bear, whose survival was threatened by mysterious, painful wounds, and the incredible efforts of a rescue team to save it. The polar bear, once seen as a symbol of strength and endurance, had been found with unusual injuries. Across its body were deep, barnacle-like wounds, appearing to have been caused by something other than the usual cuts or bites that wild animals sometimes suffer. These weren't the typical marks from the ice, and they weren't from predators either. The wounds were sharp and protruding, resembling the appearance of barnacles that are usually found clinging to the sides of boats or rocks in the ocean. The discovery of this polar bear was made by a team of researchers who had been monitoring the Arctic region for signs of environmental stress. They had noticed a disturbing trend. Polar bears, once resilient in their frozen habitat, were showing signs of illness and injury more frequently. This bear, in particular, was in a desperate condition. Its movements were slow and labored, and it seemed weakened by the infections caused by the barnacle-like growths on its skin. Upon closer examination, the wildlife experts discovered that the bear's injuries were likely the result of prolonged exposure to the freezing seawaters. These barnacle-like growths were the result of the bear's skin being repeatedly exposed to the harsh conditions of the Arctic Sea. As the ice floes diminished and the waters became more turbulent, the bear was forced to swim longer distances in search of food, often brushing up against rough surfaces or submerged ice sheets, causing painful abrasions. These wounds had become infected, turning into the barnacle-like formations, which only added to the bear's suffering. Polar bears rely heavily on the ice for hunting and moving across vast distances. However, due to the rapid melting of the Arctic ice sheets, these bears are increasingly being forced to travel greater distances over open water, searching for food in an environment that's becoming more hostile. The bear's plight was a painful reminder of the challenges these creatures face in a world that is rapidly changing. When the rescue team was called in, they knew the task ahead would be daunting. The environment itself posed a significant challenge with harsh winds, freezing temperatures, and dangerous terrain. The bear's injuries were severe, and there was a real concern that it might not survive without immediate intervention. However, the team was determined to do everything in their power to save this magnificent creature. The rescue team, composed of wildlife veterinarians, biologists, and conservationists, prepared for the delicate operation. First, they had to track the bear across miles of icy terrain, a difficult task even for the most experienced. Using helicopters and snowmobiles, they scoured the area, finally locating the bear, which was barely able to move. The team worked swiftly to sedate the animal, ensuring that the bear would remain calm while they treated its wounds. The wounds were more severe than they had anticipated. The barnacle-like growths were not just a cosmetic problem. They had penetrated deep into the bear's skin, causing infections and a great deal of pain. The team carefully cleaned the wounds, removing the growths and applying antiseptics to prevent further infection. They also administered antibiotics and painkillers to help the bear recover from the trauma. It was a long and painstaking process, as every move had to be done with precision to avoid causing the bear even more distress. After hours of careful treatment, the bear was stabilized. The team had done everything they could to ensure the bear's survival, but they knew the real challenge lay ahead, releasing the animal back into the wild. The bear's recovery would be closely monitored, as its future survival depended on its ability to adapt to the changing environment and find food. The team's efforts weren't just about treating this one bear. They were part of a larger mission to raise awareness about the impact of climate change on polar bears and other Arctic wildlife. The injuries sustained by this bear were a direct result of the disappearing ice and rising sea levels that threatened the very existence of these animals. Every year, polar bears are losing more of their habitat, and the changing conditions are forcing them to vent.